I swear to God, Gege, you ruined my wedding.
Okay, so why is the bride crying?
Honestly, I have no idea.
You thought drawing my new wife with extra weight was
I did not draw her with extra weight. I gave her thick legs. Oh, come on. Every guy wants girls with thick-ass legs.
Yeah, well... You seriously need to stop watching so much hentai.
You know I don't watch hentai.
That is a lie. Because while Giga might have never drawn it, he definitely had seen hentai before. And either way, his parents probably wouldn't have been surprised, seeing how he owes the manga-obsessed little sibling.
Gege.
What
are you doing?
I'm reading Bleach. Yeah.
Who was living under the shadow of his brother who was better than him at everything. Until one day...
それ漫画?
A girl would unknowingly change the course of history.
いいじゃん。漫画好きなの?
By turning Gege Akutami into a million.
友達と一緒に漫画描くことになってるんだけどさ。
A legend. And behind one of the most explosive mangas in modern history. Okay, hold up. I'm just gonna come out and admit that half of what I said was a complete lie. Not the wedding thing, we'll get to how Giga managed that very soon, but just because some girl invited you out to draw doesn't mean you immediately come up with something like Jujutsu Kaisen. That kind of stuff takes time, and buying a very particular book, because in 5th grade Gege Akutami was interested in everything ranging from the occult, to hair loss, to eating pure oil. Pretty much everything except for drawing manga. Which aside from making Giga a little bit of a weird kid, also made it so that if Gege ever did want to make some manga, he had plenty of inspiration to draw from. Which made coming up with ideas as easy as coming up with a pen name Gege Akutami. Because Gege, well, he's not actually named Gege, and if he was named Gege, he could probably sue for parental negligence or something, seeing as it's the equivalent of naming your child fugly ass peasant. Why that name? Well, to put it bluntly, it was easier to write than his first idea. And also the word milk might have been a bit of an issue.
Milkies?
But more important to Gege than
Gravity-welling sex mounds?
was his desire to stay humble for life, because just in case he did blow up, he wanted to keep in mind he grew up working in his parents' laundromat. Anyways, now with his pen on his paper, Gege began to fish out inspiration from the endless well of everything he'd watched and read, and began to draw. Slowly at first, just some sketches on the fringes of his notebook, but this wouldn't stay slow for long, evolving over the course of a few years to full-on storyboards for the manga ideas he had in his head. After all these years, Giga had finally found his calling. It was his life, his dream, his passion, something that he could see himself doing for the rest of his life. It was video editing. Believe it or not, that's actually what he went to college for. Even though he was pretty much obsessed with every single manga under the sun, Gege decided to major in AV production and video editing in uni, for some reason. But the best part about college isn't what you actually go to school for, it's being able to do whatever the fuck you want without your parents staring over your shoulder. And so while in college trying to become the next Mr. Beast, Gege would keep drawing. Probably more than he edited, to be honest, seeing how unstable Adobe stuff. Either way, Gege knew his time was limited. College only lasts 4 years after all, and every second that passed was one less he had as a shield from the real world. So draw he went, or draw he didn't, because Gege never actually publicized anything he drew while he was in college, much less enter the manga competitions that served as gateways into the professional manga world. It wouldn't be until after Gege graduated college that he would submit anything anywhere. In fact, the one thing he did put out for anyone to actually see was something he purely made as a gag inspired by the manga Kiss X Death. Fact of the matter was, Gege didn't really place full-time manga artists at the top of his priorities. And after seeing how much work actually goes into drawing manga, it's kinda hard not to blame the guy. So he moved on with his life. The end. Well, it turns out Gege's throwaway manga was actually kind of impressive. And impressive to the people working on a company named Shueisha, which just so happens to be the perfect people to impress if you want to do manga full time.
Surely you can't pass up someone who draws like that.
Having tripped into the manga world, Gege was given a job to being the assistant to a manga artist whose manga he was pretty familiar with, and realized pretty soon that, well, he didn't know anything about drawing manga. And learning that kind of stuff is pretty hard. I mean, even the guy who made One Piece had a hard time with it, and he's regarded as a prodigy. But Gege had it even tougher because he had to pull Shueisha out of the ground. Okay, it wasn't actually that serious, but it was still pretty serious. Kiss X Death was a manga airing on Shōnen Jump Plus, which was Shueisha's attempt to escape the blockbuster fate and modernize before they entered a death spiral. This meant that the stakes on Kiss X Death were abnormally high, and that this platform had to succeed, and it was failing really bad. It was pretty much all hands on deck at that point, and Giga, with no experience in making manga, was caught in the middle of it all. With a fragment of what was basically the future of manga in his hands, Giga had to make a decision. He could train up to be the one to save Shueisha's floundering digital product. The man, the myth, the legend himself is named etched in history as the savior of manga, or he could become a cat. Yeah, honestly, that was probably the better decision. Gege never stood a chance being the savior of Shōnen Jump because this guy existed. In the 2 years that are now Cat would turn in 3 one-shots, a random levitating guy from a random part of the country who randomly ate his dead pet goldfish for some reason would make so many one-shots that one would eventually hit bang on. So while Tatsuki Fujimoto was busy handling the explosive success of Fire Punch, helped by the fact that his editor was the fucking director of Shōnen Jump Plus, Gege was busy drawing up a picture to give to his brother's soon-to-be wife at their wedding. Which, well, you already know how that one turned out.
You seriously need to stop watching so much hentai.
No, okay. Let's not dog on Gege too much here. I mean, the guy admitted he didn't really know how thick girls' legs are supposed to be. Whether or not this was because he just never looked at girls' thighs, doubt. Or because he was living the male dream by being constantly surrounded by Atelier Ryza characters his entire life, Gege Akutami's problem was real. And if it wasn't for that meddling bride, all the female characters in his later works would probably have been twice or thrice as thick. Because, well, Gege's editor had already told him countless times that his thigh proportions were way off, but Gege never really listened to the guy. And well, now he kinda had to listen. Either way, to prevent so much heat being aimed directly at him in the future, Gege decided to draw himself a persona to shield him instead. Now armed with a shield, an award-nominated one-shot, and corrected thigh proportions, Gege decided to venture forth. With no hate, no fate, and no traits hanging over his head, our little cat guy began formulating what would become his magnum opus. Because he didn't have one, but 2 manga ideas swirling around in his head, and he had a suspicion that one of them was $1 million idea. And since we're in the future, it's pretty obvious which one Gege thought that would be. The idol one, of course. As if his life wasn't already all over the place, Gege really wanted to make an idol manga. And well, yeah, he definitely didn't make this one. Gege still wanted to draw pretty girls dancing on a stage, even post thick leg syndrome. But first though, Gege wanted to clear the way and get through his other idea, inspired by the various other things Gege was a fan of, titled the Tokyo Metropolitan Curse. Though considering that Shōnen Jump was aimed at young boys, he was forced to make it a bit more PG by setting the story in a school, because nothing disturbing has ever happened to any anime character inside of a school. The Tokyo Metropolitan Curse Technical School would also be Gege's first actual recurring manga, lasting about 4 chapters before it came to its end. Now with that out of the way, Gege could finally focus on the idol manga that had him so riled up.
Yo, Gege, how's it going?
Oh, hey, not bad, man. I'm just working.
On tour?
Oh, no, an idol manga.
What?
Yeah, an idol.
No.
Huh?
Turns out Gege's editor didn't really like the fact that Gege was drawing an idol manga. Not because he didn't like them.
But think of the fan service.
It doesn't matter what you draw. Your fans will be the one drowning you in the fan service.
Is that why it's called fan service?
Wait, that's actually a good point.
But because he thought Gege already had the $1 million idea in his hand. And to be honest, it's not really that hard to see why he thought that way. And so Gege decided to actually take up his editor's suggestion this time, reluctantly giving up his idol dreams to flesh out the Tokyo Curse Metropolitan School into an actual manga. And as Gege abridged the Tokyo Tori to Jujutsu Kaisen Koto Semagako into a title that could actually fit on the cover of a book, he looked back and wondered whether his editor's reasoning was actually sound. And of course, as we all know now, Gege's worries were for nothing. Because nobody liked it. Wait, what? To understand how this is true, we gotta understand how manga is published. Take it away, old me. Artists are continually fighting for their life, and fighting for their stories not to get cancelled. Because the next chapter isn't worked on until the previous chapter is published, usually. If the public's response to a story is bad, that story will get killed, whether it's ran for 10 years or only a few weeks. And the arbiter of who lives and dies is this. a tiny slip of paper called the Reader's Survey, which surveys readers on what their favorite manga of the week's magazine are. It's basically a popularity contest. After 2 rounds of collecting the data from these slips, one called the Quick Report and the other one called Honchan, every manga is ranked from best to worst. If your manga is in the bottom ranks, i.e. close to or in the double digits, you're on the chopping block. A few more times and you're told you're on the clock. And if you still can't reconcile the situation, your manga is finished. Unfortunately for Gege, Jujutsu Kaisen sat here, which is bad. Having an immediate death timer put over your manga usually means you're doing something wrong. So maybe Gege's gut feeling was right all along. Maybe this whole idea was a big mistake.
Cancellation. This world doesn't get any easier, does it?
But Shueisha's quick trigger finger actually goes both ways. Because as eager as they are to put you down, they're even quicker to give you another chance.
Hey, Akutami,
What's up?
I got some news to tell you.
As long as you get results.
Your ratings went up.
Cancelled? Yeah, I figured. Wait. What? By how much?
Enough to keep you going.
Whether it was just a really good cliffhanger or because people just like big floating fetuses, why did I watch this movie? This specific panel aroused enough curiosity from the public that it pushed JJK out of the line of fire for just a moment. But just a moment was all that was needed. Because it wasn't very long after that Jujutsu Kaisen exploded, winning the manga equivalent of the Oscars not even a year after it was about to be erased from existence, turning Gege Akutami into one of the most famous names in modern manga history. All this from a person who had, just a few minutes ago, no interest in drawing.
来る